Hello Ace, this is RetroTK2 and today you'll learn all about comparison operators in C#. If this is your first introduction to C#, I definitely suggest checking out the start of the series. The card should be on your screen now. And as always, I'd encourage you to check out the channel files that accompany this video. Again, the card should be on your screen now. So let's get started. There are a number of comparison operators in C# Ace, but we're only concerned with two today: relational and equality. First, what is a relational operator? According to Wikipedia, a relational operator is a programming language construct or operator that tests or defines some kind of relation between two entities. These include numerical equality, for example 5 equals 5, and inequalities, for example 4 is greater than or equal to 3. Beware the numerical equality example here is, in C# equality is not tested this way, but we'll discuss that pretty soon. In programming languages that include a distinct Boolean data type in their type system, C# being one of these operators usually evaluate to true or false. According to MSDN, there are 4 rotational operators, though unfortunately they've clumped them together with the type testing operators as well. They are less than, true if x is less than y, greater than, true if x is greater than y, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. Let's see some of these in action Ace. Open up Unity and create a basic C# script. As always Ace, make sure the script has a different name than any other class in your project. Okay, I'm going to log out all 4 of the comparison operators, testing the comparison between 4 and 8. Save the script, head back into Unity, drag our script onto a game object in the scene, and run the game. And you'll see we get true, and false. Let's go over this in more detail Ace. Now we all know that 4 is less than 8. Using this fact we can predict the output of these 4 logs. These statements are meaningful declarative sentences that are either true or false. So for the first one, 4 is less than 8. Well, we all know that's true, yes? The second one, 4 is greater than 8. This is of course false. And the third one, 4 is less than or equal to 8. This operator can be a little bit tricky, yes, since it's composed of 2 separate operators. If I swap the operators around, you'll see we get the error expression expected. So it shouldn't be too tough remembering the correct order. The actual wording of the statement is very important. 4 is less than or equal to 8. 4 is less than 8, so we know that the first half of this sentence is true, which makes the full statement true, because of the OR logic. But if I was to add another log here with the statement 8 less than or equal to 8, what would you expect the outcome to be? Well, let's work it out. 8 is less than 8. Well, we know that's not true, so we move on to the next part of that statement. Or equal to 8. Now that is true. So even though the first part was false, the second part of the statement was true, so the final output is true. This type of statement demonstrates logical disjunction, but we'll look at that in more detail in the next video. And last but not least, 4 is greater than or equal to 8. Well, we all know that's false across the board. Let's have a look at the equality operators. There are 2 in C#, and although conceptually they shouldn't trouble you, syntactically they almost certainly will Ace. According to MSDN, the binary equality operators compare their operands for strict equality or inequality. The equality operators equal to, equals, and not equal to, equals, have lower precedence than the relational operators, but they behave similarly. The result type of these operators is bool. So yeah, fair enough. They compare equality and inequality respectfully, but why do they have to look so weird Ace? I mean, the not operator, or exclamation mark, that you'll remember from the basic unary operators video, the card is on your screen now in case you missed that Ace, makes sense since it's saying not equal. But 2 equal signs for equality? Really? Why can't I use a single equal sign for equality Ace? Well, I think the main reason is clarity. Say I was to declare an int called x, and then logged out x equals 9. Now how should that be interpreted? Should this return the result of the comparison between x equals 9, which in this case would be false, or should it return 9, the result of the assignment we have just made? Equals is assignment in C#. Equals equals is comparison. And it's always a question that's asked when people are learning C#. I know I asked it the first time I seen it, but really it does make sense why it is the way it is. There will be many times in your programming life that you question a design choice made by another coder. In fact, I'd say that 90% of the time that question will be asked by you when you are looking at your own code. At least that's the experience I have when I'm looking at some of my old code, and I'll say, why in the name of God did you do it this way? After a bit of further probing, it's usually because that was the best option I had at the time, due to deadlines or the fact that the code was in such a state. Mainly because it was written really quickly to accommodate some other deadline, but that's real life coding, yes. It's a game of compromise. But we'll have plenty of time to get into all that a good bit later. Right, let's see these equality operators in action. I'll type out a basic log with x equals 9 and x doesn't equal 9. Save, head back into Unity, and rerun the game. And we get true and false. All fairly easy, yes. Let's move on to something slightly more interesting. If you remember back to the if statement video, the card is on your screen in case you missed it, you'll remember we could declare an if statement like so. The old if true do adage. Well, now we can substitute true with one of our own comparison statements, like so. ReSharper may complain that the expression is always true, but ignore it for the moment, yes. Doing this means that we can start making some pretty interesting code. This of course is a very basic example, since this if statement will always be true and will always execute the code inside the if block. So let's make something a little more interesting and a lot more obnoxious. Since we haven't covered methods and classes in depth yet, the following code that we're about to write is completely unnecessary and a disaster from start to finish. On the plus side though, it saves me from having to quickly explain some advanced concepts and also allows you to see just how redundant repeated code is. Okay, let's comment out all our logs so far so that we can keep the console relatively clean. Here I'm going to declare a basic int called timer. Then we're going to log out the current value of timer just to see where we're at. Now let's type out some fairly basic if statements. If timer less than 2, log under 2. If timer greater than 3, log above 3. If timer equals 1, log equals 1. And if timer doesn't equal 4, log not 4. Super. Finally, let's increment the timer by 1. Okay, so let's create some truly terrible code. Copy the code from our timer logout to our timer increment. Make a new line below the increment and paste our code 4 times. To all the great coding gods, please forgive me and have mercy. What we've just done is created an incredibly primitive program that will log out different results based on the value of timer. Save all that and let's see this in action. Head back into Unity, deselect collapse in the console. Doing this means we'll get to see all the logs correctly. And hit play. Immediately the console is flooded with the results of our program. Let's go through it. Well, when the timer is 0, under 2 and not 4 is logged. Equals 1 is called when the timer is 1, as you would expect. And above 3 is only called when the timer equals 4. Super primitive, but it demonstrates comparison operators quite well. Hopefully by now you can see just how powerful these little gems are. And that's it. Rate, comment and subscribe, so I hope you're enjoying this series. You can email me at retrotk2@gmail.com with any questions. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video.